Yep, all of Toy Story 2 was accidentally deleted in the middle of production, and one woman on Pixar's staff saved it. But that miracle didn't even matter a few weeks later. Toy Story 2 turns 25 years old this month, so here are some things I bet you never knew about it. The story behind Toy Story 2 starts in 1988 with Tiny Toy, Pixar's third ever short film directed by John Lasseter about a toy trying to get away from its baby owner. In 1990, Disney approached Pixar about turning Tiny Toy into a feature film, which would eventually lead to 1995's Toy Story. As the first ever fully computer animated feature, Toy Story was a big hit, making $394.4 million at the box office against a $30 million budget. And so Disney first started talking to Pixar about making a sequel a month after Toy Story's release in November 1995. But it first envisioned Toy Story 2 as going direct to video. Disney had recently started making direct to video sequels to its hit films, and the strategy was proving successful. For example, Aladdin 2: The Return of Jafar turned a profit of $100 million. But because Toy Story 2 would go direct to video on a cheaper budget, that raised a lot of questions. What would the story be? Would it be computer animated at Pixar or hand-drawn? Would they be able to afford stars Tom Hanks and Tim Allen again? The answer to that last question is yes. As for the first one about the story, John Lasseter was inspired by the difference between toys that are played with and others that are meant to be collectibles, which led Woody to learning he's a collectible as part of a set, and the inclusion of toy collector Al McWiggin, who was actually supposed to be in Toy Story but was then cut. Al was apparently inspired by John Lasseter himself. The secondary characters in Woody's set were modeled off of 1950s Western shows for kids like Howdy Doody, and Jessie was created after Lasseter's wife, Nancy, suggested there be a strong female character with more substance than Bo Peep. And then there was that other question about how would Toy Story 2 be made and who would direct it. Most of Pixar's top talent at the time was busy on other projects. Andrew Stanton was making A Bug's Life, Pete Docter was working on what would become Monsters, Inc., so Lasseter saw Toy Story 2 as an opportunity to raise up some new talent. He picked Ash Brannon, who had served as an animation director on the original Toy Story, to direct this direct-to-video sequel. But then they faced another dilemma. Almost every Pixar employee was working on A Bug's Life ahead of its 1998 release. And so Lasseter and Brannon turned to Pixar's Interactive Products Group, a team of 95 people that included animators, art department, and engineers who had just put out two successful CD-ROM games, Disney's animated storybook Toy Story and the Toy Story Activity Center, both of which went out under tight deadlines. That team had created a feature film's worth of original animation for those two games. So with Pixar CEO Steve Jobs' approval, the interactive group was reassigned to Toy Story 2 in early 1997. They worked separately from the rest of Pixar in a new building. To make the movie efficiently and quickly, they blended new animation with older, reused elements. For example, they took the old Toy Story 1 character models and gave them new upgrades and shading. And they took Jerry, an old character from Pixar's 1997 short Jerry's Game, and made him the cleaner in the movie. One of the biggest animation achievements in Toy Story 2 was creating dust. This had never been done before, so they created one tiny speck of dust and then used the computers to replicate it over 2 million times. But it seems the Toy Story 2 team did too good of a job, because by November 1997, Disney started to think, hey, maybe this should get released in theaters instead. Also, Pixar's animators had higher salaries, and so the movie had a better chance of turning a profit theatrically. And so Toy Story 2 got upgraded officially in February 1998. But that came with a firm release date of November 24th, 1999. Producer Karen Jackson spoke of how that increased the pressure. Quote, "Forget seeing your family, forget doing anything. Once we made that decision on the schedule, it was like, okay, you have a release date, you're going to make that release date." And then the entire movie got accidentally deleted. In 1998, one of the animators accidentally erased the entire film for everyone while routinely clearing out some files on the servers. 2 years worth of work went down the drain in an instant. They were only able to recover it because miraculously, technical director Galen Sussman was working from home while taking care of her newborn, and she had a backup of the film on her personal computer. But Pixar staff didn't have high-speed internet at the time, so staff members had to carefully drive her PC back to the studio and hope that they could copy the files over to their server. It worked, and they only ended up losing a couple of days of recent work. Sussman would go on to be a long-running producer at Pixar, but was then laid off in 2023, along with 74 other staff members. Anyway, the miracle save of the movie is an amazing story, but it ended up not making much difference because in late 1998, the movie was erased again for good this time. You see, after the release of A Bug's Life, Pixar's leaders took a look at the entirety of Toy Story 2 and decided it was trash and needed to be completely retooled. So they rewrote it almost entirely from the ground up in early 1999. The only things that were kept from from the original version were the returning characters, Andy's room, and the Al's Toy Barn sequence. Lasseter and Lee Unkrich then came on as co-directors with Ash Brannon, and the entire Pixar team worked furiously to finish the movie in 9 months because they had to hit that contractually obligated November 1999 release date. Oren Jacob, the former chief technical officer for Pixar, told the Next Web in 2012 that redoing the movie in such a short time frame was a Herculean effort, and the staff was so overworked that many of them developed carpal tunnel syndrome and repetitive strain injuries. One animator in a mental fog reportedly even left his baby in the car in the parking lot. Thankfully, the child was rescued without harm. Because the staff crunched for 9 months, the movie made its release date. Toy Story 2 ended up costing $90 million total to make. It opened on 3,236 screens on November 24th, 1999. Pixar's first ever short film, Luxo Jr. from 1986, played beforehand. And actually, a month after release, a fake blooper reel was added to the film's mid-credits, which included a cast and couch joke in which the prospector tries to suggestively entice some Barbies by offering them roles in Toy Story 3. That gag was pulled from the movie in 2019 on home video and Disney+. The movie did $80.1 million opening weekend, a record for animated films at the time. It opened number 1 above The World Is Not Enough, End of Days, and Sleepy Hollow. It would go on to make $511.3 million total worldwide, making it the biggest animated movie of 1999 and the third biggest animated movie ever at that point. Critics loved it. 100% of the 171 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. After seeing the movie, Looney Tunes director Chuck Jones sent a letter to John Lasseter calling it wonderful, beautifully animated, and said that Lasseter was advancing the cause of classic animation in a new and effective way. It was only nominated for 1 Oscar, Best Original Song, for Randy Newman and Sarah McLachlan's When She Loved Me, which lost to You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan. The Oscars had not yet introduced the Best Animated Feature category. Newman did end up winning a Grammy for the song, though, and it made AFI's 100 Years 100 Songs list in 2004. Meanwhile, Toy Story 2 was nominated for 9 Annie Awards, winning 7, including Best Theatrical Feature. Toy Story 2 had a tie-in video game, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue, for PC, PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and Dreamcast. In 2000, Disney released a DVD box set containing Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2 called the Ultimate Toy Box. About 1,000 copies of the Ultimate Toy Box that were shipped to Costco stores had a pressing error that resulted in a scene from the R-rated movie High Fidelity to play in the middle of Toy Story 2. And that scene had a bunch of F-bombs in it, which prompted complaints from consumers. Costco then recalled the defective discs and replaced them for customers. Toy Story 2 cemented Toy Story as a franchise and opened up the door at Pixar for sequels. It would lead to Toy Story 3 in 2010 and Toy Story 4 in 2019, and Disney announced in August that Andrew Stanton is currently writing and directing Toy Story 5, which will be about toys versus technology and has a June 19th, 2026 release date. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that John Lasseter was accused of sexual misconduct by Pixar employees and was forced to resign from the company in 2018.